Today we are going to start to talk about the class Amphibia, and the organisms here are called amphibians. We are going to discuss many things under this class Amphibia. We are going to discuss about the general characteristics of amphibians. We are going to talk about the toad and the frog. Mostly we are going to discuss many things about this class Amphibia. So let's start. So let's talk about the characteristics of amphibians. The third one, they don't have scales. If they have scales on their body for protection, it will affect their skin, which is being used for respiration. They respire through their gills during the larval stage. Since the eggs are being laid in water and it is being hatched in larva in the water, the larva they are having gill which they use for respiration. Over time, they may develop lungs. As they develop lungs, what happens? They move on land. That is why we say they partly live in water and on land. So the adult is using three things for respiration. It's using the skin, the mouth, and the lungs for respiration. But the larva is using the gill for respiration. The fifth one, some have poison glands in their skin for defense. Not all, but some of them, they have poison gland which they can use in defense to scare away predators. Next, they are cold-blooded animals. The cold-blooded animals, they are called poikilothermic animals. That means these organisms, their body temperature changes as the environmental temperature changes. For them, they don't have a constant body temperature. The next characteristics is that they lay eggs and exhibit external fertilization. Animals that lay eggs, they are called oviviparous animals. And we said they exhibit external fertilization. Fertilization is the fission of the nucleus of the male gamete and the nucleus of the female gamete to form a zygote. So if it is occurring outside the body of the organism, we call it external fertilization. If it is occurring inside the body of the organism, we call it internal fertilization. But in the case of the amphibians, they experience external fertilization. And the next one, their young ones, that is the tadpoles, are herbivorous. That means they feed mainly on plant material, while the adults are carnivorous. That means they feed on other animals. Next, they have three-chambered hearts. That means the heart they are having, it is divided into three chambers. They have the left and right atrium, and they have one ventricle. And lastly, they have a sticky tongue which they can pull out quickly and draw in quickly to catch a prey. And that tongue is very sticky. Immediately it comes in contact with the prey, it stick on it and they retract it quickly into the mouth to consume it. On this slide here, this is a diagram of an amphibian. You need to know how to label it correctly and you need to know the function of some of these parts. They have trypanion. They don't have this pinnae, this ear that we have. What they have is called trypanion, which they use for hearing. And they have eye for vision. They have the mid dorsal line, which is just a line running across the length of the body. They have the forelimb. This one in front here is what we call the forelimb, and the limb at the back is called the hind limb. And the hind limb, one thing you need to know about it, it is web. This web help the toad or help the amphibian in swimming when they are in water. And this forelimb here, this one at the front, is having fingers. But the hind limb at the back is having toes. So next on our slide is the differences between toad and frog, which are the two most common amphibians that we have. Now let's talk about the differences between the two, how you can differentiate a toad from frog. Now let's start with the first picture, that is the skin texture. So in here it is smooth and moist. Here it is rough and dry. Here it is smooth and moist. When you touch the skin of the frog here, it is smooth and it is moist because the frog is living mostly in water, but the toad is living mostly on land. So that's why we said the skin is dry and walty, or you can put there rough since we have used here smooth. The other feature is that the hind legs. In here, it is long and strong for jumping. For then they can jump a long distance than the toad. For the toad is having a short and less adapted for jumping. For then they just jump a short distance and they have a rest before they move. Short distance compared with frog. And their habitat. The frog, they live mostly in or near water. For this one, that is the toad, they live mostly on land. And their body shape, this one, it is slim and streamlined. That means it is taper or it is smaller at both ends. As it is getting towards the tail, it becomes smaller. As it is getting towards the head, it becomes smaller. But in here, it is short and stout comparatively with the frog. And in terms of their movement, frog most often they move by leaping, and the toad they move by crawling, or they make a short hop. And lastly, in terms of egg laying, the frog they lay egg in cluster, as you can see it here on this diagram here. The frog they lay egg in a clustered form. But for the toad, they lay egg in a chain-like form. As you can see it here, these eggs here, they are being arranged in a chain-like form. And in some cases, you will be asked to give the differences between the egg of a frog and the egg of a fowl. So if you are being asked from this diagram here, you can see the egg of a frog is not having a shell, but the egg of a fowl is having a shell surrounding it. The egg of a frog is laid in water. The egg of a fowl is laid on land. The egg of a frog is transparent. That means you can see through it. The egg of a fowl is opaque. That means you cannot see through it. The egg of a frog is having a transparent black pigment in it, while the egg of a fowl, it is not found in it. Now let's talk about adaptation of the egg of a toad. What are the adaptation of it? One, they are surrounded by jelly coat to protect them from physical damage. And two, the eggs have sticky surface. They stick on one another since they are being laid in water. This will prevent them from washing away. As we have it on the slide, the eggs have sticky surface which allows attachment to surfaces, preventing it from being washed away. And the third one, they lay large amounts of eggs, which increases the chance of survival despite predation. So they lay large amounts of eggs because they know these eggs will be eaten by predator. So they have to lay many eggs. So when a predator come in contact with them, it is possible that the predator will not eat all of these eggs. And lastly, they lay egg in moist environment. Since these eggs they are not having shell on them, they are being laid in moist environment to prevent desiccation. That means to prevent them from being dried up. Because immediately the eggs is being dried, it will not be able to hatch into larva. And to ensure gaseous exchange, because the egg is not having shell, they can use it to respire. Next is the adaptation of a toad. What are the characteristics that it is having which enable them to live effectively in their environment? One, they have a large bulge eye located on either side of the head for wide vision. Then two, they undergo what we call camouflage. That means they blend their color with the color of the environment. You can see the color of this toad that we have here resembles just like the environment. This one will make it very difficult for predator to identify them. They have a sticky tongue which they can pull out quickly and draw in quickly in order to catch a prey. And the fourth one that we have below here, it has a web hind limb which they can use for swimming. And lastly, as we said in their characteristics, that some of them produce a poison from the poison gland which they can use for defense. As we have it here, this is the poison that is being secreted by this toad from the poison gland which they can use to scare away predators. So now let's discuss about respiration in amphibians, how they respire. The amphibians, the adult, they respire by three means, but the larva, they respire by using the gill. We are going to talk about the adult, not the larva. So the adult, they use their skin for respiration, which we call cutaneous respiration, and they can use their mouth for respiration, which we call the buccal respiration, and they can use their lungs for respiration, which we call the pulmonary respiration. We are going to discuss about all of them. So let's start with the cutaneous respiration, which is the respiration that is being done using the skin. So let's talk about characteristics of the skin as a respiratory organ. As we describe the characteristics of the gill as a respiratory organ, is almost the same thing that we have here, although they are being stated in different sentences, but it's almost the same thing. Let's start. The skin is thin, thereby shortening diffusion distance. Mind you, if the skin is thick, it will be difficult for gases to diffuse through it. Therefore, the skin is thin to shorten the distance that these gases has to diffuse through them in order to get to the blood vessels which has to transport them to the tissues or the cells where they are being needed. Then the second one, they are highly supplied with blood vessels to allow efficient gaseous exchange. Now, mind you, after the gas has dissolved across the layer of the skin, it has to be transported to where they are being used. So in this case, we need a blood vessel that has to transport these gases. So the skin is highly supplied with blood vessels to allow efficient gaseous exchange. Next, the skin is always moist because gases cannot diffuse or they cannot pass through a membrane if they are not moist, if they are not dissolved in water. So for them to pass through a membrane, they need to be dissolved in water. That's why the skin is always moist to be permeable to allow gases to pass through. This one is very important. If the skin was impermeable to these gases, that means if it was not allowing these gases to pass through, then this skin will not have been used for respiration. Therefore, the skin is permeable to allow gases to pass through. That means it can allow these gases to pass through it. So after we have talked about the cutaneous respiration, next we are going to talk about the buccal respiration, which is the respiration that is being done through the mouth. Now let's talk about how this respiration is being done through the mouth. So in here, we are not going to make use of the lungs. We are just going to make use of the mouth. And it has to be in the mouth that this gaseous exchange has to happen. Now let's start how it is being done. The mouth will be closed while the nostril will be open, and the toad will lower the floor of the mouth so that air will rush into the mouth. Now, when the air gets into the mouth, oxygen will be diffused into the blood vessels that are found around the mouth, and carbon dioxide will be taken out into the mouth. And after this process, it will now raise the floor of the mouth, and this air will be forced to move out through the nostril to the outside. But mind you, this process is being done mostly when the toad is at rest. Next is the pulmonary respiration. That means respiration through the lungs, which is being done most often when the toad is in action. And mind you, when the toad is in water, it most often uses its skin for respiration. When it is on land at rest, it uses its mouth for respiration mostly. But when it is in rapid action, it uses its lungs for respiration. Now let's talk about how this respiration is being done through the lungs. So in here, the mouth will be closed and the nostril will open, and the toad will lower the floor of the mouth. As you can see here, the floor of the mouth is being lowered here. Air will rush in from the atmosphere into the mouth when the floor of the mouth is being lowered. Now, after that, they will close the nostril. The nostril close as we have on the slide. Now the mouth is closed, the nostril is closed. At this point, the floor of the mouth is being lowered and air has entered into the mouth. Then next, what has to happen? It will now raise the floor of the mouth. When the floor of the mouth is being raised, it will force the glottis to open up. The glottis is the opening into the lungs. So that opening into the lungs will open up. As it opens up, the air from the mouth will rush into the lungs. Now, in the lungs, oxygen is being taken by the blood vessels and carbon dioxide is being taken out from the blood vessels into the lungs. Now in here, oxygen will be taken from the lungs by the blood vessels and carbon dioxide will be taken from the blood vessels into the lungs. Now after this process has happened, we need to take out this air again. There comes in the process of expiration, the taking out of air. Now in here, the lungs which have expanded due to the entering of air into it will contract. When it contracts, the air will move from the lungs into the buccal cavity. So the floor of the mouth that was being raised to force the glottis in order to open so that the air can rush into the lungs will now be lowered. As the floor of the mouth is being lowered, the lungs will contract in order to force the air to move from the lungs into the mouth. When the air gets into the mouth, the glottis will close and the toad will open the nostril. And what has to happen since the glottis has been closed, the toad will now raise the floor of the mouth and this air will be forced to move from the mouth to the outside.